Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining today for the second Principals Coffee Chat of the year. I appreciate you taking some time to jump on Zoom as we're going to engage in some questions that have been pre-submitted, and I'm sure we're going to have some questions that come up just in our conversation this morning. I always like to allow just a little extra time for some that, like me this morning, encountered a little bit of technical difficulty getting on Zoom. So I'm going to give one more minute in case anyone else is showing up, and we will get started in just a moment. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining today for the second Principals Coffee Chat of the year. I appreciate you taking some time to jump on Zoom as we're going to engage in some questions that have been pre-submitted, and I'm sure we're going to have some questions that come up just in our conversation this morning. I always like to allow just a little extra time for some that, like me this morning, encountered a little bit of technical difficulty getting on Zoom. So I'm going to give one more minute in case anyone else is showing up, and we will get started in just a moment. All right, looks like we've been pretty steady with individuals jumping on, so I'm going to go ahead and get started this morning. Welcome once again to the Principals Coffee Chat. If you are, I see some are coming back, joining us the second time. I hope you continue to do that. If some of you are just joining us for the first time, let me just establish the purpose for the coffee chat and what we do here. My name is Douglas Nelson. I'm principal here at Wootton High School, and the coffee chat provides an opportunity for, as a principal, for me to share information specifically to questions that parents and caregivers might want to get some firsthand information in regards to that question. So it is pretty informal, but I do think it's very helpful. So this morning we have had 4 questions that have been submitted in advance. And I'm going to go ahead and start by addressing those questions first. And then once we have talked through those, I imagine for some of the questions that have been submitted today, that there will be follow-ups or the responses might beg another question to be asked. And when we get to that part of the meeting, you may submit for a follow-up question, either through the chat or by unmuting and just asking that question. So we'll go to what I consider the open forum portion of the meeting. So that will be the second thing that we do. We have an hour scheduled for the meeting today. And so I'm going to go ahead and get us started with the first question. I want to try to put these together in a way that makes sense with the questions that are submitted first. So today I'm going to start with a question that's just pretty technical and straightforward, and that is about transcripts. And then the 3 questions that I have following that, they are really in regards to what is happening in the Middle East around the Hamas and Israeli conflict and what the school is doing. And I imagine that will be a more extensive conversation. So I'm going to go to that second, just so we kind of get this technical question addressed right up front. So here's the question that was submitted. What is the difference between an unofficial transcript and the student grade and graduation credit report? What was shown at the PTSA meeting was different from what I see for my child. It's a great question. And a little context, if you were with us at the PTSA meeting, that graduation, the student grade credit report was shown. And that report, if you take a look at it, it's going to give you certain information, but it does really beg a question. What is the difference between this specific report, what parents see at home, and then what is the official transcript? So I have some information here as an administrator that's worked with high school counseling services for a number of years, but I also believe in going to the expert. So I took this question forward directly to our registrar in a high school, any of our high schools in the system. This is your expert. Straight up, like the registrar really knows what's going on here. So this is what was shared with me, and I'm going to share with you. The student grade and credit report displays the courses that are taken by subject, and it also has a grid on the bottom showing credits taken and credits that are needed for each subject. So it's a summary report. When I look at it, it almost reminds me of how do we summarize grades the way that we do in a report card, but this is going to be over multi-years, right? It's a specific MCPS summary report. The transcript shows the courses taken by school year, and official transcripts are required for college admission. They will not accept a summary grade report, that SGGCR that we showed at the PTSA meeting. So official transcripts go one step further. So as the principal, for example, if I was on a Zoom with a parent, or if we were in a parent conference, we could pull up that summary grade credit report, and we could use that. We could speak to where are students with grades, where are they with classes, what is their cumulative GPA, what courses do they still need to take. So there are more access points to that grade credit report. But a college would not accept it. And there are some institutions when we need to share information, let's say you're applying for a scholarship, it really comes down to that group. My experience, it comes down to that group's requirements and what they expect. And some will not take a communication such as that. They are looking for the official transcript. And so they're largely alike, but the official transcript is going to come directly from the school, directly from the registrar. And when I have seen them, they include signatures and kind of a stamp on the document to show it has been reviewed and someone has said, this is an official communication that then communicates that information that I shared earlier. So similar, but it's really how it's prepared and how it's sent out and kind of what review goes along with that. So technical question, and I hope that gives you some background about the difference between those reports. As I said before, we're going to step into 3 questions. These are specifically about the terror attacks in and around Israel, against Hamas and Israel, and what we are kind of doing to respond to all of the things that are transpiring in response to that issue in the world. A little bit going into this, I just want to say up front, I have some questions. It's really been my experience as someone who's been working on this kind of all the time since this event took place here at the school, to figure out where individuals are and to support in whatever way that I can as a principal. I think it's important to be upfront in moments like this. This is the start of a conversation. We're going to engage in this today, but I do not believe that my response is, I'm not intending to give you all of the information. I do not believe that my responses and what I prepared today is fully going to address any one of these questions. So I just want to be transparent, and I want to enter that space and being upfront with you. I'm going to give some information. I'm sure that this is going to cause us to engage further in the conversation today. I will do my very best. I think it's likely as we continue that conversation that there might be things that I have to follow up with. I might not have an answer for those. So I will do my best here to give you that information. And please know, as your principal, I will continue this conversation with you. And I'm always very interested in what ideas or feedback you have to share with the school. And as I'm addressing this question, there's a real why behind that last one. So let's go ahead and start with the first question that was submitted, which is, please explain what communications have been made to the Wootton community on the Hamas attack on Israel, and what mental health resources have been made available to students at Wootton in dealing with the aftermath and war. So I think a communication is an extremely important one to start with. So I'll start with specifically what has been communicated, and then I'm just going to paint a bigger picture of what has been happening with communication. The 3 pieces of communication that have gone out include, on the very first day that students were back after the initial attack, there was an all-call announcement that was made, and it was shared. I felt it was very important, and I had some staff talking with me as the principal, that it's extremely important to not enter the space and not acknowledge. To go into that first day after something horrific like that takes place, and then we don't say anything, is not setting us up. And so I had what I felt like very good support from the staff here. And so there was a prepared all-call announcement. The next communication came from me directly to the Wootton community. And that message was one that was prepared by MCPS, the school system, and it was a directive for principals to put this message out as it has been written, unedited, and it needed to be sent out by the close of the business day. And so I moved forward with putting that message out, and I want to own this one right up front. It did not help. And so I do feel that that message did not help in supporting our community. I feel like it felt formulaic, it did not feel authentic, and it did not offer support. And so that has been a challenge in dealing with putting a message out like that. I do want to apologize to you all. I will say what I've shared with some, and I will share with you. I follow through with MCPS directives. I think that that is important. But that is one that I wish that I had not put out, and that it had not impacted the community like that. And when things like that happen, while I cannot take the message back, I can own it on my end to the best that I can, and I can advocate. So in situations where I have been able to connect with those that I feel asked for that message to go out from schools and from principals, I have shared what I have heard from you and taken that feedback back to central office. So I want you to know that was how I responded, and I would not stand behind that communication and did not think it was helpful. Then there was an additional communication this Sunday in the community update, and there was one that was more specific to staff in the Patriot Press. But they really that communication really intended to do two things. It was to acknowledge, but I really also want the Wootton community to know authentically where I am coming from, which is as your principal, I feel like engagement and supporting both staff and students is extremely important for me right now. Individuals, what I believe that they are showing us, specifically our students, is they are letting us know what they need by showing us where they are, either with their emotion or how they are advocating or what they're asking the school to do. And as a principal, I think it's very important that I find ways to connect with that. And so whether it's creating spaces like that with the Jewish Student Union or the Muslim Student Association, we're engaging. And I wanted to paint a picture that we have spaces like that happening at the school and that I'm showing up as the principal. And so that was the purpose behind the communication this Sunday. One other thing that I just want to share with you all, again, in transparency, principals are being advised to not communicate. But I also felt like it was extremely important to not enter the next week after the feedback that I had received and what I feel was the communication in the middle of last week that did not help us, that I miss an opportunity to communicate. It's not acceptable. So I went ahead and communicated anyway. But I just want you to share as a principal, it has not been an easy time. And trying to balance between the needs of what I feel like are the school and the school community, and then MCPS and what is being asked. So that is a note about communication, and I hope I've painted a picture of the challenges that we have faced in all of that. There's a note in this question about resources that are being provided. One resource that is straight up that has been in place since these attacks occurred, and that is that students have open spaces to go into as they need them. And counseling services is open to any student. They may go down, and so is Bridge to Wellness, where we have support staff that can work with students that might still be struggling with emotion. And there are times where we do a similar structure in regards to other things that happen. And you'll go and check with counselors if students show up. And oftentimes the answer is no one showed up. I'm glad that it was available, but students didn't show up. But what I have heard from the spaces that we have opened up in this regard, students are showing up. So we will continue to leave those doors open, and counselors and Bridge to Wellness staff will work with students. And then there has been a flow of resources directly to staff from the school system about how to deal with challenges like war, how to deal and talk through things such as a terror attack. And those resources have been shared with the community, with the staff here at the school. So that's question number one. I'm going to take a little pause here, and then we'll go into the next submitted question to see if there's any follow-up. And this one is specifically in and around communication and resources. So Rob asked, Rob, is it okay if I share this one? This was a direct message. Yep. Okay. Okay. So this one is about where
I dropped
about,
off the
go ahead, Rob.
list, and I know it was sent out. I just don't know where to access it out. Do I have to contact someone in your office to get back on the email list?
Perhaps you might have to do that if you feel like you've been dropped. You might have to come to the main office. My secretary, Jen Hicks, is pretty good at this, but you can always find the community messages. They're archived right on the Wooten website. So if you just go, it sits on the right and it's principals updates, if I recollect. You just click on that and you'll see the archive. It would be the one from last week, which would be for the week of October 16th. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and address question number 2. This one is, please provide information on how Wooten is striving to remain neutral on the complex issues of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and the horrors on both sides. This is an interesting question to me. I appreciate it being submitted. And the thing that really jumps out to me is the term neutral, right? So I'm going to try to speak to that first. And I don't know if I can say that the approach straight up is neutral, but what I have tried to really strive to do is find an approach that ends up feeling both supportive and educational. And I want to be upfront with all of you. That is, as I processed over the weekend, that was where I really landed and felt like it was very necessary space for the school to go. And I don't know if that means we are playing a neutral position, but I do believe that that is a position that allows us, for any staff member or for any student, it allows us to meet them where they are. And I believe that that still remains very important. And so sometimes, I don't know, in talking and processing with students and being in a space where it feels like an affinity space, I don't know if everything feels neutral. I don't know. But I do believe that high schoolers in particular, as they're learning to live in the world, they are going to share with you their opinions. Same with staff. They're going to give you who they are. And in engaging that conversation, sometimes we get in the space of beliefs and we talk. But I believe that that is a supportive move. And it is important that staff still continue to show up for students in that way. It's important for administrators that when people need to meet with us in process, we show up and we give our authentic selves and honest opinions as we talk and we work through this. So what I kind of want to say about how are we managing the complex issue, it is around creating spaces of support, and it is around education. And one thing that I want to share with all of you is how, for example, the approach to education has not been an easy one. So we worked, and I met with the administrative team. I worked with the social studies department to explore that, to see if we could find ways to get fact and information out to students. And that team worked with me on that. But parents were not accepting that we were going to go into that space around education for whatever that reason is, right? We heard immediately that that was not going to be acceptable. So we didn't go there. So my point in saying all of that is it's delicate for us right now as we try to do certain things that as educators, it feels like we are supposed to do, which is to educate. And a big part of that education, I think, is particularly important because I think fact-based education that teachers can communicate to students helps us in spaces to confront what is information that is not factual that students are encountering on social media. I think that's really important for us to do. But we've also got to do it in the right way, and we've got to work with all of our stakeholders. So it is much more challenging in the current time to do things that we would often do in other situations currently. But we're continuing to engage and talk that out. So we are not delivering the set of slides that we had developed, but that doesn't mean that we are off that course of action and won't try to find other ways to educate our students. So that's how I respond to question number 2. And then question number 3, and then we're at the point where we can open it up. And that is, what is the school doing to help Jewish students and staff feel safe and supported given rising anti-Semitism during the war in Israel? So, as I said before, I think this space of support is incredibly important. And whether that makes someone feel safe, I do not always know. But one thing that I feel like you can sense is whether someone walks away from a space and feels supported. I'm going to share 2 examples of how I think that this is helpful and beneficial. The first is last Friday, there was a space created by the Jewish Student Union in which stories were shared, very emotional stories, for staff and students who attended. And then that space moved into reflection and prayer. And while it was very hard to hear those stories, and as an administrator, what I feel is you somehow want to take pain and suffering away from your staff and students, and yet you cannot. Being in that space with them and experiencing that together, I believe, did bring about support. And so that one, I'm kind of not taking my foot off the gas pedal with that. And so there have been additional meetings, processing. I think we're in that space and finding ways to continue to support. Another example that I want to share with that is today, outside of just this coffee chat and then a meeting with student leadership group, my whole day is just being available to the staff of Wootton, because they're really, in so many ways, front lines for your kids. And they're creating that sense of safety and support also. So today I am just in listening sessions for anybody that wants to come down and see what is needed, where are the students currently, really tap into what the staff are experiencing, what they're sensing, to see if there's something additional that we need to do. Again, as I continue to keep kind of my foot on the gas pedal of supporting this school, there's an intentional move being made just today to engage in that way. Also in this vein of supporting students, specifically our Jewish students, entering those spaces in Bridge to Wellness counseling and working with other staff members, like those who are sponsors of the Jewish Student Union, I think is very important. Not only is there allyship in that, I believe that students and staff are supporting one another by connecting in that way. So I hope that students are finding their way there. I don't want students to not have any feeling of support. And if so, I think we've got to do something about that. But we're really trying a number of things in the hopes that they will leave students feeling supported during this time. Another little note on this. I think it is important that the admin team and ILT, that's our leadership team, that we're bringing forward agenda items to try to figure out what we are going to continue to do. And that, I think, is the job of the principal. So there have been multiple meetings for the admin team. This was on the ILT agenda last week. And we're going to continue to engage to figure out our plan, as I've shared before, because it's not always clear. It doesn't always have that direct answer. So we've really got to process it out and try to come up with what we can. So those are the things that we're doing. And now we'll open it up for additional questions and other things that you would like to explore. So this one, I'm going to share, what can we as parents help with in getting fact-based education supported in schools, especially with so much propaganda out there? Yes. So this one is truly a challenge. I'm going to start with kind of what I believe is a principle. I don't believe that the way that we support our students is just like blocking social media. Some individuals have asked that. Like, I don't believe that we restrict speech, and I don't believe that we shut down things for students, right? So then what do we need to do? I think that we have to be clear and upfront with our students that we need them to be paying attention and understand that facts are more important than just the free flow of information that is on social media that we know as adults many times gets it wrong. How do we do that? So I think we've got to talk with our students. Some have come down and walked right into my office to explore this, to request things like a social media shutdown. And I've been clear and upfront, we cannot do that. So my request to parents is, if you can support us by talking with students and bringing that up, I think that school to parent connection, when kids feel that, they take note. But any additional conversation, any advice to our students to come in and talk with counselors or try to is going to help us, because I am, as a principal, very worried about the things that students are encountering on social media. And when kids are on the phone, it's like, it's very hard to know what they're seeing or how they're they're finding content. So I would be very appreciated for support at home. And a note about graduation. What can you share with us about graduation? Has the venue been decided? Here's the update on graduation. I don't believe that we will have a decision about graduation until December. Principals are generally asked to communicate that to their communities just before December. And a little note on that, when it comes out, it always includes the caveat that this is still tentative. Like, this is where we are submitting. It's likely we will get it, but there's always the caveat that it might not end up being the space we initially communicate. But we will send it by December. What I can share on our end is we have submitted our preference form. So we have analyzed the survey. The survey data is very clear for everyone that completed that and provided us with feedback, super helpful. So we filled out our survey of preference, and now it has been submitted to central office, the Office of School Support and Wellbeing. And then we will hear back in December what we can communicate to you. So we're moving it along. December is what you're looking for. So here's a good question. What has Wootton done and will do for the drug issue at the school? One thing I'm going to say about that drug issue, straight up front, I think sometimes we paint the very broad picture that it's like, what are we going to do to just like evaporate this from the school? But what I always think about in this question is, if a student is imbibing in drugs or other substances that should not be at school, that likely to me as an educator and now as a principal communicates what is the need of that student, because there generally is some reason why you would do that. And we know that there are ways to get in there and support with students and offer them services so they can move through whatever they are using to a healthier place, which is the desired outcome. All of that to being said, if you know of someone who is experiencing drug issue, if you know someone, your child has come home and shared that they might be concerned about someone, you want to communicate, and you can do that confidentially. You can do that to an administrator or a counselor. But reaching out, I've seen plenty of times where the intervention is what helps a student's health to improve, because this generally is a health issue for that student. Bigger picture, what do we do to kind of address if there are drugs being used in the school? We, of course, have a strategy for security in which they are moving throughout the building continually on a pattern in order to observe for those things. If it's observed, it's generally communicated, and then we're going to find, if we can, that student, and we're going to try to intervene. If we find a student and we know that they have used or they have something they shouldn't at school, we're going to work with that student, contact parents, use the student code of conduct to address the behavior, right? And generally monitor for that student moving forward. So that is when we find it. Other things that we do, of course, there's general education programs in and around this, and of course, Bridge to Wellness. They have resources for working with students. We have groups that actually work on this here at the school for students that have voluntarily said that they would like to work and improve in this regard. And then they get resourced with teams that come in and work with them periodically. So there are a number of things that we do. I don't believe that any of this waves a wand and just gets rid of that issue. But those are certain things that we do. So Junhua, it looks like you have a follow-up. Do you want to hop off? You're muted.
Yes, now this my question is, the students, when the students vaping or drugging in the bathroom, I think that's what I heard that was the biggest issue. The students who go to the bathroom, then occupy the bathroom, then the rest of the students could not go to the bathroom because those students vaping and the drugging take forever and will not get out when they just stay in the stall. So will it be helpful for the school or for MCPS to install those detectors? Then if there are detectors, even MCPS or does not provide those devices, I think as the PDSA, we may be able to do fundraising and get some of those detectors installed in the bathrooms. But I'm sorry, my other phone was trying to be.
That's okay. So I do have a good update here, and thank you for that. I believe that we will have detectors. So what has been done is 5 or 6 MCPS high schools piloted detectors last year. And when you talk with those principals, they saw an improvement, right? I don't think anything's going to totally take care of the issue, but they found it to be a benefit to their school, and that was across the board. So now MCPS is going through the RFP process in order to bring vape detectors in, right? But that has a timetable to it. So in time, I believe that we will have vape detectors at Wooten, and that will be to our benefit. In the meantime, I would not fundraise if we know we're likely to get something. But when I talked directly with the office about that, and my reason for doing that was not only this, because I want, if something's nefarious is happening in the bathroom, I want it to be detected so people can respond. But I also would really like to get us back to the point where we don't have to periodically lock bathrooms. So this is two-pronged for me. And so I believe that is sometime this year. The question is just when, after that RFP process has been completed.
So before we get the vaping or drug detectors, is it possible for, I don't know whether it is possible because in terms of staff resources, really for some staff member just randomly go to the bathroom and check it, when students know our staff will go to the bathroom, I'm sure that will create a little bit, hesitate to go there to vaping, because if the staff will call them, they will have consequence. So I think I don't know the resources at school. So if it's possible, maybe just randomly go to don't need to go to all the bathroom. Maybe today go this period go this bathroom, the other period go the other bathroom. So you just create a kind of intensive environment for those students who want to vaping or drug in the bathrooms.
Right. So my observation is that is happening. So I walk through and see adults in and out of bathrooms all the time. And definitely the kids don't like it. As soon as an administrator of security goes into that space, like you can see the eyes roll but you sometimes have to ask them to exit. Right? You have to literally move them out of the bathroom when an adult finds it. I do not believe it is a perfect system, but there's also the reality of what staff we have available and then the whole campus that we have to cover. But I want to assure you, I see adults going in and out of bathrooms.
Thank you.
Yep. So just to revisit about graduation. So just to repeat, you will know, the question is about when you'll know the graduation date. And that will be before winter break. We will send the tentative date before winter break if we are on the timetable that we were last year. And it seems to me that we are, as schools would have submitted their preference list last week.
Mr. Gable, let me know if you can.
So this one I might need a little follow-up with. Is it possible for the school to send out a message touching on the type of issues like substance abuse as well as harassment if a student tells another student no, it means no, etc.? So could I just hear a little bit more about, I guess, the messaging around that?
Hi, sure. So I was just sort of adding to Ms. Liu's comment with regard to, students, for example, vaping in the bathroom or, whatever the, instance may, involve. So whether it's vaping, people maybe smoking marijuana through a vaping pen, I don't know.
Yeah.
But
right.
I just think that sometimes, there are a host of side issues that, we hope aren't taking place, but, sometimes they are. And sometimes, students and adults, in the workplace, for example, need reminders about their conduct. So, nothing like, with overly like strict language, for lack of a better word, but just kind of like a gentle reminder,
Yeah, right.
because everybody should feel comfortable and not feel pressured or like overly exposed to things that they don't want to be around. And we all know that this is going to happen in life, but again, sometimes people just need a little reminder, like, hey, when you're in the bathroom, this shouldn't be taking place. Or, if you're talking to another student and if they express to you that they're not interested in a certain type of activity, or, I mean, there are occasions where someone's asked out on a date and they're just like, no, I don't want to date you. But then,
Yeah, someone keeps pushing, right?
yeah, just little, reminders like that. I don't know.
I know. I'll just acknowledge, like, we spend a good amount of time talking about this at the school, and different groups talk about it. And, you have some really interesting push-pull factors, right? I do believe what you were just describing, those dynamics happen. They're definitely going to happen in a large comprehensive high school like ours. And then it is, in what way is that student comfortable to report? And students explain to us they feel like a lot of challenging dynamics about if it's going directly to an adult, that feels like snitching and it feels so formal. Is there an informal way to do this? And then they also feel like the challenge of feeling, are they not going to be kept confidential if they're reporting those things? So the dynamics are really tricky. What I want you to know is we're really talking this out with certain groups. What we have done is really worked with the staff. I've done May into pre-service this year about the importance of reporting. And I think that this is extremely important to share with students. I will share with you. I will continue to share this is, if you feel like something has been done or something has crossed a line, you've been harassed or you have seen something, you're like, I am not okay with that. At some point in time, we've got to go to the place of reporting. And if you're really unsure, I would recommend to just see a counselor and process it out, and they can give confidential advice. Administrators, right? They will have to move based on policy, and we're going to have to address something that is reported to us. So there are also ways to report. They do seem so formal, but they're going to get it done, which is the safe tips line, right? If something happens on the weekend, or someone you just don't think is in good shape, or it feels like a parent is told from their child that this kind of conversation, you're like, this does not feel safe, it might be harassment, whatever that is, you can report through the safe tip line, and that comes right back to the school. The whole cycle is that it just gets information into the school building through offices that communicate with us, and then we can take action. So some things already exist, and the idea is being talked about some informal way, some confidential way for students to just openly report. That doesn't require that you fill out a form and kind of sign your name to it. So I feel like we're working on certain things that way, but I would leave with you, if you just feel like something does not seem right, I think a counselor is a great first step to try to talk that through.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So a little note about homecoming. Hats off to the PTSA and the homecoming party. Students enjoyed it. They really did. They enjoyed it. I had heard rumors of a potential winter formal for those students who were hoping for the traditional homecoming dance. Is that something Wootton is thinking about? So the answer is yes, it is being talked about, and that's specifically the SGA. So it's not necessarily something the administrators move forward or approve. But there is a group that is talking about that. And a note to the PTSA, if any of you are PTSA members or some of you were with us that night at GLOCO, it was a lot of fun. We had such a substantial improvement in turnout. And it was great to see the students have some fun after a football game, but that could not have been done without your support. Thank you to the volunteers and for the PTSA. You're always such a support for us, and it's truly appreciated. So Rob, follow up. If you can find my email, and if you email me directly for the links to the principal's update, just send me a message and I'll reply and I'll give you that link. And from the Wootton homepage, it is the link above. Oh, this is a response about where to find it. Upcoming events. Thank you for that. Susan, looks like your hand's up. You might have a question.
Yes, and then I have to figure out how to put my hand back down again. Hello. This
Hi.
is a behavior question also, specifically around booing at football games, and I just need kind of your take on this, because I might just be being a stick in the mud about this. But as a band mom, you know me as a band mom.
Yeah.
The band was out there at the homecoming game. It had just started the national anthem, or was heading into the national anthem, when the opposite team came out and the whole student section erupted into booing, and the band had to stop playing the national anthem and wait for the booing to die down. And that felt very uncomfortable for me as a band mom. Like, we work on such, a culture of respect. And I didn't like how that felt, but, maybe it's just normal for kids to boo at football games, but it felt yucky. So I just wanted to hear a little bit more from your perspective on that. And like, the announcer didn't say anything and the band just stood there awkwardly until it died down. So would love to hear what you feel about that. Thanks.
Yeah, Susan, that's a good one. I want you to, when I caught that, I turned around, I was like, we do not do that here. Like, and I turned around in that like surprised moment, because I actually really haven't heard us do that before. And I'm not sure if it was the hype of homecoming, and we really did have a big student section, but that caught me off guard as well. So I believe first we got to pay attention to that. I would not want that to become a habit, right? I don't think it's okay, and it certainly cannot be something that we do regularly. I think the idea is interesting about the announcer, right? If there was the ability to get that like to call that out, or if there was a way, if that really happens. But I think when it comes to booing, for those that are watching the student section, like if we catch a group and we know that that's how they're going to be addressed, like we're going to go directly to that group before that larger scale thing. I remember that moment in the homecoming. So I appreciate you raising it up. And I think my next step is to talk that out with Mr. Lightsey a little bit and give his sense, especially if we have a large student section and something like that happens.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And actually, I think that's why it felt so funny, because I didn't remember it from before either. So thank you. Appreciate that.
You got it.
Hey, just to chime in on that, I really liked that what Susan said about culture of respect, because essentially that's what I'm alluding to. I just feel like there's like a theme, but some might be a little more serious than others. Sometimes some types of actions are more serious than others, but yeah, it's just being respectful of others. And that's all I wanted to add.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess one thing I would say to that is I think it's been on our mind too. So let's keep this dialogue open. The whole idea is that we wanted to, if last year was the bounce back year, right? And some of the messaging and just, I think the encouragement was around last year being a year that's going to feel like we're back. So we want students to show up. We want you at games. We want you at POTH. Engage and start to feel like you are back at school. If we did that last year, this year, the idea really was about unity. And that's the whole concept behind the tie-dye event and trying to get those good crowds at football games and increasing our numbers at GlowCo. We want to feel unified. And I think that this plays right into this point. This is how we kind of nurture that culture of respect, if we feel unified in the building and we feel like we are a connected school community. So I think these things kind of go hand in hand. My point in all of this is to say, we're working on it. I don't know if we have all of the things figured out or the direction that we want to go completely, but some of the things we are trying to do this year are really in support of this idea. Go ahead, Susan. Oh, claps. Those were claps. Got it. Are there any other questions that anyone would like to share, or if you want to hop off mute and ask? If someone's thinking about it, a good update that I'll share with everyone. If we, of course, are working on a weight room. And so every single thing that we need to finish the weight room is now in and has been delivered to the school. It's great news. And our contractors will be in starting Monday of next week. And so the floor is going to go down. That means equipment can start to go into the space, and we're going to have another next set of burst of work on the weight room, which I'm very excited about. And so I just kind of wanted to share with everybody here that I think students will start to notice. If you contributed to that, or you have a student athlete or someone that takes the class, the weight room is going to get some needed work, and we're going to make some steps forward with that. Question about any update on bathroom discussion from the last coffee chat. I don't know if I have an update as much as we're still kind of in the same place with bathrooms. But if I might actually need a little more information if it's whether we've been looking at bathrooms or whether we're still locking them. Anything specifically direction you want me to go with that update? Okay, maybe not. So I'll give just a little note on bathrooms. We did. Okay, got it. So updates on repairs. So since the last time we were together, we did complete a bathroom audit. Meaning we just went in. We wanted to kind of see, based on what students are saying, what do we see? Will we go kind of in and do an objective review? This was in tandem with the business office here at the school. And we really took a look to see what are we looking at. I'm just going to be up. I know the students are not always happy with the bathrooms here, but my takeaway as the principal was we were in pretty good shape. Not everything worked, but we were able to identify a couple of things that needed to be worked on. And I'll say we had 2 non-functioning toilets. And in response to that audit, we followed up second submitted work orders. And then that next week, those 2 were repaired. So we were able to get some things moving forward based on the bathroom audit. I found it to be a pretty helpful process to go through. So we did conduct that in between the last principal chat and this one. A little note on some things that have happened for us. For whatever reason, the next challenge, students are flushing some things down the toilets that they shouldn't. And so we're losing toilets for about 48 hours to get plumbers out here to get things out like pencils. So not something that you would put down a commode, but that happened to us in a couple of instances. So if you hear anything, please know students can submit a concern or something not functioning. The SGA should have their submission form. And anything that you need to report can go to the business office, so we can go out, check it out. But bathrooms get monitored a lot by building services. They get cleaned throughout the day multiple times. So usually that is discovered by building services, and then we try to get something rectified, like a not working toilet. Little wait time here. Very helpful. This is, yeah, football games and GlowCo are not always sensory friendly. That's true. What kind of Unity activities is the school planning that are inclusive for students with disabilities? Yes. I don't know. So the straight up answer to that is I don't know what our next Unity activity is, but I know some are being thought about. And I also know we have some school traditional events where this might not be sensory friendly once again. I think POTH or like the lip sync competitions where you might want to go, but that's definitely loud music and a lot of flashing lights. But that is good feedback to share with some of our groups. Here's one. We do have Halloween dressing up that's coming up soon, and there's going to be like prizes awarded on the fly throughout the day, and you don't have to go into a space with like loud music or things like that. So some might feel a little sensory friendly. We definitely still have the fun planned, but I will take that piece of feedback and share that with some of the groups that are planning. Question, can you please confirm that AP African American Studies will be offered in the fall? Meaning just me, if I can ask directly, right now that we're offering it? Or do you mean next year?
Oh, I meant next year, Principal Nelson.
Okay. So AP African American Studies was up for us this year. And this is what I'll say directly to everybody. If any course is if you have an interest in a specific course, I definitely recommend that you talk with counselors, because AP African American Studies was available for us this year. It will come down to whether we have enough students to take the course. Right. And I think AP African American Studies, that is a course that I would pay attention to and would want in our, but we can't run them if we have 6 kids that take them. It's not enough to actually offer the course. So I am sure that will be in our course catalog, but there are always some AP courses that we offer, or courses, you know, that we would want to see offered, but then we can't because we don't get the enrollment. So that will definitely, I believe we will be offering that for a choice. So I would advise talking with friends, or you think that if that's what you want your child to take, like anything you can do to talk up a course or try to convince individuals to select that when it's course decision time, plays in your favor and helps us get that course across the line.
That's really helpful, Principal Nelson. In your experience, is there sort of a magic number or critical mass that sort of needs to be there for the course to go forward?
Mm-hmm. And that depends on our staffing. It depends on where the budget is, big time. So Wootton has experienced a decrease in staffing for the last 3 years consecutively. So it gets harder when that happens. I'll say that. But if we have, you definitely don't want to go below 15. But anything above 15, if you definitely get in the realm of 20, now it becomes very challenging to not offer it. So if we had a good group, 20 or above, you're in really good shape to have that course offered. And counselors can give you a sense, right? They know what we call the tally, and they're going to be able to let you know, like, oh, we've had a good interest in that course. And then, you know, if we have the students to take it, we offer it.
And how can we be helpful as parents to advocate for increased staffing at Wootton if this is sort of a trajectory that you're seeing? How, like, you know, who do you want to call? What letters do you want us to write? How can we be helpful?
So just talking with anyone, right? Our staffing is based on our enrollment, but we have lost, I think, some help, like programs that you want to see as a principal, you want to see kept at the school, but for a number of reasons, we cannot offer them. And that always, it hurts my heart. So if you talk with, I'm not telling you to go, but if you are connected with individuals, you know, the Board of Education and like individuals that are really involved in funding the school, anything to get additional staffing to buildings. And this is for Wootton, but truthfully, it is for any building. You resource it with more staffing, that literally means more opportunities for kids. And I know, I think that students, even if there are 10 kids in African American Studies, that's a benefit. So if you can offer it, why wouldn't you if you're staffed that way? So the more staffing, we're then not up against all of these high standards, like it's got to reach this enrollment factor. So it's a principle, I'll always take any help to get more staffing. Here's a question this fall. French 5, 6, French 7, and AP French are still in the same class, and it's about 30 students. Is this going to be addressed moving forward? This is likely it's not. So this connects literally to what we were just talking about with AP African American Studies. So French 5, 6, 7, and AP French, they're combined like that. And I know that the preps are challenging. I truly know that. I've actually been in that class. But 30 students is what we need to offer those. So the truth is, we can't, to unravel them or to create separate sections around French 5 and 6, and let's say French 7 and AP, the numbers are now too small to run the courses and we'll lose them altogether. So I do not see with our current staffing how we can untangle those 4 courses. And I also recognize that that is very challenging to plan for that. Those are different curricula, yet all in the same section. But what I will say is that in other schools, this is not something that is just happening here at Wootton. This happens in all the high schools that I have worked in, because you want to be sure students stay on their trajectory and are taking the sequential courses they need to take, but you don't have the numbers to make them separate courses. Question, does the health curriculum or other forums speak to the psychological factors associated with promiscuity? There seems to be fake notions and perceptions by students regarding this behavior, and psychological factors and rumors. I do not know the answer to that. So if that is one, if I could just ask Iran, who submitted that if you need me to take that back, would you like me to ask and get you more information about that? I do not know the health curriculum that intimately.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm only asking because, I care about a girl's agency, and I hear things, about those behaviors, and I just want to make sure that people understand why people do what they do, and it's important not to perpetuate those issues because that person probably actually needs help, right?
Yep.
I saw this happening in my own high school where there was false pretenses about why someone would do what they would do. And in actuality, that person needed someone to support them and get them the appropriate services that they needed. And there were oftentimes reasons for why someone would be behaving that way.
So I can follow up. Ms. O'Neill, she's the resource teacher that works with the department that oversees health curriculum. Ms. McCarthy is our health teacher. So she is a resource. If you just want to ask a question to someone who teaches it, that oftentimes really paints the best picture. I do want you to know our health curricula for MCPS through the curriculum office. They give a lot of information out because health is always a curriculum that really is monitored and individuals pay attention to. So you oftentimes can find a lot of information through their website. And the last thing I would say on that is we also, through counseling services, annually are required to talk to students about personal body safety. And there feels like we're in a little bit of the same space there. And there is specific teaching from counselors to this topic as well, if it's not in health. A note about offering engineering classes in the future, Wooten to offer them in the past and then drop them in the last couple of years. Maggie, I don't know about that, but this is Mr. Turner's house, so that's the technology. That would come down to specifically what courses we offer in the course bulletin. So if you would like to, I can help connect you with Mr. Turner. I do not know if we have current to bring back engineering courses that we didn't offer before, if we are planning on bringing them back this year. A note from Rebecca, which is our Latin students are taking their courses through Montgomery College. This is very true. So while we have French all connected, the Latin students, we didn't have someone to teach the Latin courses and the staffing was a challenge. So we have students that are going to MC to take their course. That is accurate. A note, thank you. This one's been replied to. We do have facilities advocacy coming up that is coordinated by our PTSA. November 6th and 7th are the dates. So I know we always have a very robust turnout from our cluster, and that's important for our school and its facility. So please know those dates are happening. Do we know about how many books students read in 9th and 10th ELA? I do not know. I do not know the specific number, and I don't know if it's books per se, because they might do short stories like so. For Rebecca, what I would share with you, the person that can help you with that is Ms. Starr. So she's the resource teacher, and she will have a sense of the specific books in the book room that those teachers are planning on teaching and having students read in ELA classes. So Ms. Starr and then Ms. Bro is the assistant principal over ELA, both great people you can reach out to. Right. And we are just about at time. So I have a couple of thank yous. I appreciate everyone's support in the chat. Thank you. But honestly, I just like having the opportunity to get some real tangible details out to our supported parent community. I really appreciate all of you that come to these. If there's any follow-up, if you want to direct someone that maybe can't make this scheduled coffee chat time, please know that we record it. And I love for, individuals, you can watch it on 1.5 speed and, even reduce the hour time, but you'll still get that information because I think it's important to get out there. So thank you all for showing up. Hopefully we'll see you back in November and follow up with some of these items once again. I'm here and supportive. Please let me know if you have any ideas out there that you think would be a real benefit to Wooten, and I will look into the items that I said that I would carry back. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Doug, for.
Rob, did you find it?
Yes, it was user error. Thank you for being so frank and open to the degree you can be about the Hamas. I don't think the community realized your hands were tied in terms of what you could communicate. And I think that a lot of people just thought you copied and pasted something without knowing the background. So that's really appreciated by the community.
Absolutely. I thank you. Thank you for those words. It's helpful to hear. I appreciate it, Rob.
Okay, take care.
Take care to you too.